Brace yourselves. Hurricane Milton is back and stronger than ever. This monster storm has surged to a terrifying Category 5, packing 165 mph winds as it barrels toward Florida's Gulf Coast, just days after the devastating hit from Hurricane Helene. With the National Hurricane Center warning of possible fluctuations in its intensity, one thing is clear: Milton is expected to remain a major threat as it takes aim at the Sunshine State. Stay tuned as we break down the latest updates and what you need to know to stay safe in the face of this potentially catastrophic storm. It's crazy how fast hurricanes can regain strength like this. That rapid jump back to Category 5 must be terrifying for people in the storm's path. I can't imagine how stressful it must be, especially right after Hurricane Helene hit so hard. The storm is predicted to make landfall near Tampa by Wednesday evening and then track across central Florida on Thursday. In response, 51 counties in Florida are under a declared state of emergency, with millions of residents potentially facing evacuation orders. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, in a press conference on Tuesday, cautioned residents not to be lulled into complacency even if the storm weakens slightly. He emphasized that Milton will still have serious consequences regardless of any minor reduction in wind speed. Wow, 51 counties. That's a huge area. I wonder how many people are making plans right now to leave or stay. Hearing that the storm could still cause major damage even if it weakens must leave people unsure of what to expect. Milton's path could potentially bring the most severe storm Tampa has experienced in more than 100 years. The storm is part of an elite group of only 40 hurricanes in the Atlantic that have reached Category 5 status. Even more concerning is the fact that Milton is one of only 7 hurricanes in history to jump from Category 1 to Category 5 in under 24 hours. FEMA officials have warned that Milton's rapid escalation makes it the 3rd fastest growing storm on record in the Atlantic, trailing only Hurricanes Wilma, 2005, and Felix, 2007. That's alarming, knowing it could be the worst storm in a century for Tampa. I had no idea there were so few Category 5 hurricanes, and the fact that Milton intensified so quickly really shows how unpredictable nature can be. The NHC has issued stark warnings about the potential for catastrophic storm surge along Florida's west coast. This life-threatening situation has prompted local officials to call for urgent evacuations in high-risk areas. Rainfall estimates for the Florida Peninsula and Florida Keys range between 5 to 10 inches, with some areas expected to receive up to 15 inches. The heavy rainfall raises concerns about flash flooding, urban flooding, and significant river flooding, while the northern Yucatan Peninsula could experience 2 to 4 inches of rain. The risk of flash flooding on top of a hurricane is just overwhelming. Even if someone isn't in the direct path, it sounds like the rain alone can cause a lot of damage. I bet local emergency services are already stretched thin just preparing for this. Mandatory evacuations have been ordered across 13 counties in Florida, while 7 more counties are under voluntary evacuation orders. Governor DeSantis reassured the public that people don't need to travel far distances to stay safe. He advised those in danger zones to seek higher ground or stay with friends and family in safer locations within their counties. Residents can also consider staying in hotels or designated shelters. It's a good reminder that you don't always have to go far to avoid the worst of the storm. I imagine a lot of people would feel more comfortable staying with friends or in a shelter close to home, rather than evacuating hundreds of miles. Hurricane Milton is arriving just days after Hurricane Helene wreaked havoc across the southeast, especially in Florida's Big Bend region, where at least 20 people were killed. FEMA has decided not to divert personnel from areas still dealing with Helene's aftermath to Milton's potential impact zone. Helene had devastating effects, with over 200 deaths across multiple states and widespread destruction. Florida's infrastructure and emergency services have already been heavily taxed by Helene's damages. The timing of these storms is brutal. It's hard to imagine trying to recover from one massive storm only to brace for another. FEMA must be working non-stop, but even they have limits to what they can do. As of early October, the Atlantic hurricane season has generated 13 named storms, including Milton. This places the season ahead of schedule, as the 13th storm typically doesn't develop until late October. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas recently raised concerns that FEMA might run out of funds due to the active season. President Biden has suggested that Congress may need to pass additional funding legislation to support states' port recovery efforts amid the string of destructive hurricanes. It seems like the hurricane season just keeps ramping up earlier and earlier each year. The fact that they're already talking about running low on FEMA funds is a bit worrying. It really shows how stretched things are when natural disasters keep piling up like this.